what's happening in the UFO because so much has happened. It's like overwhelming. But yes.
It's okay.
So what's happened is if we follow the steps, all of a sudden, George and I, we release all this content. People go kind of crazy over it. Then they put out this preliminary report and say we had 143 cases and we solved, one of them. And these are like military cases where there's like extraordinary movements with these craft. Then all of a sudden Congress is like, well, shit, we had OSAP, we had ATIP, who's studying this? Let's get a hold of it. And they got real interested. So they started saying, hey, we need to start a program. Then the Department of Defense came up with some crazy ass acronym names that nobody could ever make out, AIMSOG and shit like that. And Congress got even more pissed, as the way I read it. I mean, I know some of the people involved and their minds have been blown by what they've seen in these classified briefings. It changed their whole way of thought. And they realized that there are programs being hidden, illegal programs, being hidden from congressional oversight related to UFOs. So their language now, it wasn't created in a void. When you read in the National Defense Authorization Act for 2023, UAP, it is UFO whistleblower language. If you've ever signed an NDA relating to one of these illegal programs without oversight dealing with UFOs, not only can you come forward, but they have changed it so that if there's any reprisal on you for coming forward, like let's say you work at Lockheed and you've been tinkering with some fucking UFO, and there's any reprisal on you, you have ways to defend yourself. Like they took away the cap of $300,000 of what has to be awarded to you if there's reprisal. Holy shit! All of a sudden, and I know why, because I know some of the people involved in this. They're going to let people, they're demanding that if you have this information, you can ignore your NDAs. And I know people...
Let's get into this.
Yeah.
So what is happening here? Yeah. So is it Congress does not have access to the information because the Pentagon has deals with these military contractors and they don't want to release the information to Congress? Like why is there this dispute of information? Do they not have access to information that they want to have access to?
For sure.
So that's why they're calling upon these people that have NDAs to come forward and that they'll protect them?
I think it's a perfect storm, and I'm just going to, this is just, I'm not part of Congress and shit, so I'm going to make an assumption from people I've talked with, right? I think what's happening here is the world has kind of become aware that UFOs are not fantasy, that there is a technological aspect, and that they fly within our skies with impunity. And I think that this was stigmatized before, and I think we're talking about it now. And I think having that conversation has really made people say, hey, I want to fucking find out if it's true. Mm-hmm. And then when you read classified briefings and you see the data, even the preliminary shit, I think it changes your worldview. So what's happening is, let's say Lockheed, because Senator Harry Reid has said in his interviews with George publicly, I heard for decades that they had, craft at Lockheed. And he goes, I asked Senator Harry Reid, I asked to get in there and to see it. And he goes, they wouldn't give me the clearance. So he just straight said it. Mm. They wouldn't give him the clearance. So that kind of thing infuriates people, right? Now, imagine this. Imagine that you get people take action against you for talking about this stuff, like Lou Elizondo. People, Lou's a straight guy, straightforward. I've gotten to know him. There were actions taken against him. Kind of like what Lazar said happened to him, right? But this is like much more like public. They're saying he never worked in these programs. Harry Reid had to go defend him in a letter, right? There's other people that are not public that also have had their careers try to be squashed because they're poking around on this stuff too much, right? They have gone internally to say, this has happened to me. Here's what I discovered. These are the programs. And then what's occurred is the investigatory branches that are looking into this, they're like, holy shit, this is real? And we don't have oversight? And it's been proven to them.
So when you say the data, when they look at the data, like what's the most compelling data?
Yeah, I always want that question answered too. You mean for me or?
Well, for you first, and then what do you think about for like the people that are questioning this?
It's so hard to live in a world now where you have to question everybody and everything. Because for me, the most compelling evidence, it's not one video I can show you. It's not two videos I can show you. It's not documents I can show you. It's not the conversations I have with people. The world is creaking under the stress and the weight of the UFO reality. It's just omnipresent now. We're no longer just ignoring it. And our sensors have gotten better. And the frequency has increased. So you've got pilots like Ryan Graves, who's saying, we were seeing these things every day.
Who's Ryan Graves?
Ryan Graves is an amazing pilot, like Fravor, but his was in 2015, so the gimbal video where it shows the saucer-type craft, that was his squadron. And they'd go out, and they'd see these things every day. And he was a flight safety guy, right? So he was like looking at this thinking, this is an issue. If they almost hit one once. One of these cubes with a translucent sphere. So this is a safety of flight issue for a lot of people, right? I think it's, from a national defense standpoint, it's fucking important, right?
Sure.
Okay, so we've got these hearings now, these public hearings on UFOs, right? This is the first time in 50 years that we've had public hearings. People fought for that. They wanted the public to hear about it. They weren't getting testimony from like Fravor and all of them, although they should. That's the next step. They need to have people with direct experiences come up and let them talk. Let them tell what their realities were. Get rid of these NDAs for them.
Yeah.
But in that hearing, the closer we get, George keeps saying this, and I just keep saying he's like a pessimist, but he's right. This is all fun and games until we get close to it. Like any of the real stuff, any of the goodies. If we have craft, and we've had it for a long time, and we've been working on them, trying to reverse engineer them, if that is true, the closer the public gets to that, the harder the resistance. And we saw that, because these UFO hearings, man, they showed one piece of the footage that I released for like the whole hearing. They're showing this one piece. It's the most inconsequential piece. It was from the USS Russell. It's the green one, that triangle by angle of observation thing. That's the one that's easiest to kind of dismiss visually. What they didn't show is I released from the USS Omaha radar, thermal, deck footage. It's like cumulative evidence. Congress and Senate were asking, what's up with UFOs? And they got swamp gassed. Like J. Allen Hynek, like just trying to put it under the rug. They go, oh, we're pretty sure these were drones. That was never the argument. It's not if these were drones in 2019 swarming our Navy ships. You know, who was inside of one? They weren't big enough to hold people. It's not that they were drones. It was like some big revelation. Here's the question. Who were operating these units? How come we don't know that right off of the coast of California? 10 of our Navy ships were simultaneously swarmed by unknowns, unidentifieds. They couldn't figure out the launch. They couldn't figure out the landing point. They don't know who was operating these.
And how far offshore were they?
I mean, it was within a 100-mile radius, because all the ships that were in this area were experiencing, most of them simultaneously, what they call swarming. But the thing is that I know for sure we don't know yet whose these were. How is that possible modern day? I don't know where these are from. I'm not even claiming that.
And did these experience, or did they exhibit rather any extraordinary capabilities?
Depends who you ask. So the answer to that is, when I get people, and I actively hunt for direct eyewitnesses for all this. So I've spoken with people who are, you say, operating the Spy 1 radar system, the same one in the Fravor case, this great system, right? I also spoke with people who had visual on these things. Some people say that they show one of what they call the 5 observables. That means, you know, this goes into the UFO category, which is instantaneous movement, right? Boom, straight up into space was the exact words said to me. I've got people on the other end of the spectrum where they just saw lights. So no, in this case, it's not like Fravor's. We don't have footage of it, you know?
Do they have data in terms of radar data, of speed and...
Yeah, they do. And that's what I tried to kind of tell the public by releasing one slide that said that they believed that these craft were transmedium, because the video I released, the black and white one from the USS Omaha, you can see it kind of phase out or drop into the water. They thought it was Transmedium. They thought it went into the water. They sent a submarine.
Well, that's why it's so weird when like this UFO disclosure thing comes out. You know, this guy, what is
Didn't it just come out today?
Yesterday.
A whistleblower?
Yeah. This gentleman, David Grusch. And David Grusch, let's find out who he is and what his credentials were. But he essentially said that they are illegally hiding it from Congress, and they are illegally hiding it from the American people, but they have off-world craft in possession.
Who's the they in that?
It's somewhere. Well, it's in the things they're saying is. Oh, here, let's read it. Air Force veteran has made a bombshell claim that U.S. government has recovered materials that could be proof of UFOs, including an intact craft of non-human origin, but they are keeping it a secret from the public. David Charles Grusch, a veteran and former member of the National Geospatial Intelligence Agency and National Reconnaissance Office, has blown the whistle on this information, speaking with several news outlets about the crafts. These are retrieving non-human origin technical vehicles. Call it a spacecraft if you will, non-human exotic origin vehicles that have either landed or crashed, Mr. Grusch told News Nation. Mr. Grusch served as senior technical advisor for the Unidentified Aerial Phenomena analysis with top secret compartmented information clearance, according to the debrief. He also served as a senior intelligence officer in the National Reconnaissance Office. In total, he has 14 years of experience serving as an intelligence officer. So here's the question. Is that a PSYOP? Is this, we've got a non-human craft, a PSYOP? Like if I was the government and I was working on some shit and I didn't want China or Russia to know about it and we could do some wild shit, some anti-gravity shit. I thought it was totally nuts and I thought at first I was being deceived. But it was a ruse, Mr. Grusch told News Nation. People started to confide in me, approach me. I have plenty of senior former intelligence officers that came to me, many of which I knew almost my whole career, that confided in me that they were part of a program. He told the debrief that he's prepared many briefs on UFOs for Congress, but last year decided to provide hours of classified information and data about the materials recovery program. Mr. Grusch claims the materials recovery program was shielded from proper congressional oversight. So this is what Bob Lazar has been saying forever. This guy's saying that it was going on for 80 years. So like this brings us back to the 1940s. I mean, this means like Roswell. This is what they were talking about when all the people that were at Roswell, that were at the actual crash site and the actual claim they saw bodies. And then there was two different aircrafts that were flown in to Roswell, New Mexico, and took the wreckage and flew it in two different aircrafts in case one of them crashed, supposedly. And they flew them to Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. This has all been documented. Now, if that was a balloon, it was just a balloon, why would they go through such lengths? And why are there so many people that have so many stories about Roswell? Why are there so many hokey, goofy fucking explanations of what happened, including it was a parachute and there was human dummies, like crash test dummies that were evolved because they were crash testing things. Like not according to the people that were there. What they saw was materials that could not be explained, insanely light. You would crumple it and it would immediately flex back to the stage that was out there. They found things that had some sort of writing that resembled hieroglyphs. They don't, I mean, these people, they could have all been full of shit. It could have been just some story, something happened and everybody told everybody and you're playing a game of telephone and the next thing you know, it's this wild story of bodies and little tiny caskets and, and people being silenced. But the problem is the story is very universal. When they're all telling the story, it's real similar, man. It's a real, and the guy who was a part of the initial release, he went public afterwards and said that stuff that we showed the American public when they were sitting there, I forget the gentleman's name, but he was showing like a piece of a weather balloon and they had this smile on their face. And this is one day after I think it was the Roswell Daily Record. They had the front page of the newspaper that the government has recovered a crashed UFO.
I mean, I don't know how big the universe is. I've heard it's hard to quantify in size.
Yeah, that's it right there.
I mean, what do you think the odds are in all of the universe that we are alone?
It's not good. If it is, it's wild. If it's just us, it's wow. What a weird fucking aberration.
But let's assume it's not us. So for a species, I mean, we can look at where we are at. We can make it to kind of the moon before we start fucking up. Maybe Elon can get us to Mars, maybe not. But so let's assume that a species that was able to come and like check us out is probably more advanced, probably more intelligent. I think they would run for the fucking hills.
Why?
Because we are idiots. And I think anybody who viewed humanity from a long enough, more objective lens would say maybe we can just leave this trash planet alone for a little bit and we'll come back after either they have killed themselves again and regrown into something better, or when they come and visit us.
And he's the guy he's ended his career to come out and talk about this stuff because he's like this is nuts. Like this is, and if you're a real patriot, that's probably the thing you should do. And apparently, according to Sagar, he was talking about breaking points. The New York Times rejected this. The Washington Post rejected this. They didn't want to talk about it. This is the gentleman. So let's play this.
Do you mean? These are retrieving non-human origin technical vehicles. Call it spacecraft if you will. It's probably not the right parlance, but no kidding, non-human, exotic origin vehicles that have either landed or crashed.
We have spacecraft from another species.
We do, yeah.
How many?
Quite a number.
That's it. Where's the whole interview?
Probably that website.
See if you can find. Is that something you have to sign up for? What is it? What is it?
News Nation.
News Nation. Meanwhile, that might be a 100% government-controlled organization that just promotes propaganda. That guy's working for them. You got to think about all these things.
I know.
News Nation. Who are these folks?
Chris Cuomo ended up.
Oh,
I don't know what
interesting.
channel it is.
He's their fucking centerpiece. Look at that.
Yes, he is.
He looks a little tanner than usual.
Can we save ourselves from ourselves, Joe? To go back to the humanity sliding towards the brink?
It's possible.
Oh, here's the 10-minute interview.
Okay, let's hear this guy.
What do you want? How much?
Just play it. Let's just see what's up.
Military program that has reportedly found wreckage of fully intact unexplosive
On the UFO question.
What conclusion did you come to at the end of your time on the UAP task force?
The UAP task force was refused access to a broad crash retrieval program.
When you say crash retrieval, what do you mean?
These are retrieving non-human origin technical vehicles, call it spacecraft if you will, non-human, exotic origin vehicles that have either landed or crashed.
We have spacecraft from another species.
We do, yeah.
How many?
Quite a number.
You're kidding.
No. I thought it was totally nuts, and I thought at first I was being deceived. It was a ruse. People started confiding in me. They approached me. I have plenty of current and former senior intelligence officers that came to me, many of which I knew almost my whole career, that confided in me they were a part of a program. They named the program. I've never heard of it. And they told me, based on their oral testimony, and they provided me documents and other proof, that there was, in fact, a program that the UAP task force was not read into.
Grusch alleges the U.S. government...
Does it keep going? What else does it say?
The entire American public has been lied to for decades.
Yeah, there's a sophisticated disinformation campaign targeting the U.S. populace, which is extremely unethical and immoral.
You are saying to the human race, for the first time, an official intelligence representative at a high level from the US government is saying publicly, we are not alone.
We're definitely not alone. Absolutely, the data points empirically that we're not alone, yeah.
Do we have bodies? Do we have species of
Well,
non-human?
naturally, when you recover something that's either landed or crashed, sometimes you encounter dead pilots. And believe it or not, as fantastical as that sounds, it's true.
It's also harder for people to wrap their minds around the concept.
I don't know, man.
He might be full of shit.
Well,
He might be.
I'm fascinated.
Agent. He might be a government agent.
Well, to unpack that a little bit, so there are... I can only speak to it from a military perspective. So he was in the Air Force. There are programs... They're covered programs, or there are programs that you're not going to get read into. And just because you're read into one program doesn't mean you're going to get read into other ones. So his clearance, TSSCI, is not an uncommon one. It's the same clearance that I held that I was in. Having a clearance, there's two things, right? You have to have the clearance and then you have to have the need to know. So you could view him saying we were not read into another program as something that would be conspiratorial, or you could view it as like one program didn't necessarily have something to do with the other one, so there's no need to actually read them in. I'm not saying that's the case, but I'm fascinated to understand. It sounds like what he is saying is that the United States military is nesting that program, the program to go recover, and I would be fascinated to know how they are doing that invisibly. I mean, we're talking aircraft. We're talking identification early on, aircraft moving teams, and this. You know what I mean? Like, there's a lot of shit.
Right.
I'm not saying it's impossible.
But there are people that are coming forward, so it's not like they're totally being quiet, which is sort of in line with human nature.
They're coming forward with a piece of a pie. I'd be fascinated how all the pieces of the pie fed together. I'm not saying what he's saying isn't true, but watching that actually, for me, with my limited understanding of some of the stuff he was talking about, I have more questions that I would want to ask him.
Yeah, I would want to ask him too. We got to get him. Got to get him on here.
I bet he would come on here.
I'm just going to go on fucking.
I feel like though,
the hell it is.
I feel
News
like
Nation.
He went on a tour. It sounds like.
Yeah.
Oh, why didn't he contact us?
I think you might get more circular answers.
Maybe he did.
Probably asked too many fucking questions.
You might get more.
Ooh. Maybe I asked too many questions. Maybe the word I get him
You
high.
ask good questions though. Is he still in? I might not even matter. I don't even know if they probably allow weed in the current military. You might get more circular answers than specific ones. If you look at the answers that he was giving, and again, I'm not trying to discount what he's saying. And I personally, like I have said many times, I think it's improbable that we're alone. He was speaking in generalities and not specifics. He was talking about other people's experiences, less his own.
Yes, that's a good point. And that's my question would be, what have you seen?
Yeah.
What have you seen physically with your own eyes?
Yeah.
What have you touched? What do you know for a fact?
And again, I'm not saying he hasn't had those experiences, but I would ask those same questions as well. And it's just from my understanding of how the military will compartmentalize, as all organizations who actually want to keep information, or at least delay the release of information. Compartmentalization is not a novel concept.
Well, that's what Bob Lazar said was the problem with the back engineering program. He said that science can't exist like that in a vacuum, and the propulsion experts were not allowed to talk to the metallurgists. The metallurgy experts were not allowed to talk to the biology experts. He said if they really did have physical bodies, the people that were working on the propulsion system had no knowledge of that, weren't allowed to talk about it. But there was all chatter. Everyone would talk about things, and apparently there was some sort of a debriefing they gave them, and in that debriefing he said it was so nuts. He said, first of all, they said they've been coming here forever, and they also said that we're a product of accelerated evolution, which is wild as fuck.
Yeah.
That human beings in general, why we are so different from all the other primates. I mean, that's always been the fucking conspiracy theory folklore. That's the fun one, is that they came down. That's the Anunnaki that came down here and messed around with lower primate DNA and did something to it to create a human being.
I'm here for it.
I'm here for that.
Yeah.
That would make everything fun. And then I would think that the government would want stuff like this to come out if they're in the middle of like stealing money or doing something really wild.
Oh, the classic misdirection?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, if you're going to take something that gets rid of a certain amendment, or you're going to do something that allows you to infringe on rights or to impose some new sort of restrictions. And
bring the aliens out.
Yeah, bring the aliens out.
The stuff is landing or crashing around the world, and unexpected countries have had this happen, and that's why I picked that, because I thought that was a interesting case. And then, of course, Pope Pius XII and the Vatican were involved, back-channeling it through the OSS, which became the CIA later, to FDR, and that's how the U.S. knew something weird happened in Italy right before World War II. But
so this was 33 was the first documented.
That is the earliest one I can talk about. Yeah.
There's something that predates that?
You could infer that.
You could infer that.
Yeah.
So this 33 one you said was in Italy?
Yeah, Magenta. So it's I'm bad at geography. I think that's like a Lombardy region. It's like northwest Italy.
And what's the story behind it?
So basically it looked like it crashed, right? The original shape most likely was like a lenticular disc-like craft, with like two dinner plates.
What
right?
does lenticular mean?
So like two dinner plates, smushed together, right? The hump, and there's like a like a bubble on top.
Like the
if you will.
classic flying
classic,
saucer.
like that.
Like that. Okay.
But it looks like when it hits, the edges broke off, so it became this like bell or acorn shaped thing. And there was nothing in it. It was like just an artifact. There was no biological remnants, if you will. So it's so funny because the Italians were so confused. They actually called up the Germans and they were like, is this one of your Wunderwaffe? Like, what the hell just crashed in northern Italy? Mussolini. And this is all publicly available information because some Italian researchers found all these original documents that some people were sitting on for years in Italy. They put a gag order on the press, etc. And Mussolini asked the Germans to come down. And of course, the Germans came down and they were like, that is not ours, but let's look at it together. So that's kind of perhaps a tertiary reason the kind of Axis powers got together. I'm not saying that's like the reason, but I think the Italians and the Germans were so intrigued with what they found from like an artifact perspective. There was at least some scientific and military collaboration during the war, the details of which I'm not sure of, but I know people that know that specific event that are currently still intel officers within this program in detail. But
so was there witnesses to the crash or some sort of an understanding that something had crash landed and then they discovered it?
Yeah, I forget the precise discovery. I don't know if it was like local police officers or local farmers found it in the field, something like that. I don't want to misspeak. I assume some of the Italian researchers might have some fact witnesses that can orally say, "Oh yeah, my great grandfather found it" or something like that. But I don't remember.
What was the scale of this vehicle?
It was probably like 20 feet by 10 feet, something like that. Not super huge, but kind of big.
Do they think that this was a drone? Do they think that this was occupied?
There was nothing in it. So if it was piloted, if you will, by some sentience, I mean, your guess is as good as mine. So.
So what happened to that vehicle?
So we knew where it was being stored at a particular location after the crash, and then the military came in and we grabbed it towards the end of the war, 1944, 1945, because, like I said, Pope Pius XII already kind of let FDR know.
Why did the Pope get involved? Because it's
in
Italy?
Well, interestingly enough, there's like a whole history of human intelligence prior to World War II and old money, the Vatican, the Italian mob, kind of the old country boys did a lot of informal intelligence collection for the U.S. And there's probably some books you can read on it, but it's really interesting. Human intelligence collection wasn't really formalized until the Office of Strategic Services, the OSS, which became the CIA in 1947. You had Paul Mellon and all these other affluent guys of all these old money families that basically created the CIA. So that's probably the reason why.
So this thing that was recovered, this was the first documented one that the United States had access to?
I can't get into if it was the first or not, but it was an early one.
Very early.
Yeah.
So it's almost 100 years ago.
Yes.
And so they take this thing and then they bring it where?
Yeah, I can't get into those.
Can't get into that.
No.
Okay. So they bring it somewhere in the United States. And was the attempt to try to back engineer this thing? Was the attempt to try to understand what it was?
Yeah, I mean, first of it, obviously, it's understanding the situation, right? What do we have our hands on? And like I've said in some other videos and stuff, that we took the Manhattan Project secrecy and overlaid it on this issue because that secrecy worked well for atomic bomb developments and whatnots. And certainly this whole program in a nutshell, if I were to summarize the 90 plus years of history, it is a reverse engineering program to garner some kind of insight. And of course, not a lot of the things that we've learned from it are directly, ripped off the technology we found, but it has inspired other innovations that made its way into other U.S. classified programs over the year for national defense reasons, and it's a myriad of different things. So
The UFO folklore is that this is where fiber optics were discovered first.
yeah, I'm not going to break the seal on anything we've discovered or anything like that. And yeah, it's a place I can't go to.
How limited are you
Yeah.
in what you can discuss and what you can't discuss, and why?
Yeah.
Why do they let you discuss any of this?
Yeah, so anything sensitive that I want to say as it relates to like U.S. government activity, whether it be intelligence stuff, military stuff, etc., I have to submit it through what they call DOPSR, DoD Office of Pre-Publication and Security Review. That is something anybody who's been an intel officer, anybody with like a clearance, has to submit that kind of stuff. Now, obviously, if you're writing a book about gardening, you don't have to. But if you're going to talk about anything military and intelligence related, you have to submit. So it's kind of a catch-22 for this office, right? They're only looking at it from a security perspective. They're not vouching for it or anything like that. And that's like any author, right? They could write a book about Navy SEALs and they're not vouching for the story. They're vouching that you didn't say any nasty code words. You didn't burn a specific ongoing classified program. And for them, I mean, I'm not in their OODA loop, but certainly it's a catch-22 for them where if they want to redact and they propose a redaction, they're like, hey, Dave, you can't say these sentences. You can rewrite it and resubmit. We can't necessarily tell you what agency said to redact it, but you're not allowed to say this. They would be basically self-certifying there's a there. So in my opinion, probably the policy is like, if it has to deal with the subject, we're not saying anything. We're not proposing any redactions. As long as he's not burning a conventional program, we kind of have to allow him to exercise his First Amendment rights. And so I think it's like a catch-22 for that office is kind of the short of the long answer.
So this is essentially one of the very early ones, 1933. Mm-hmm. How many crash retrieval incidents have there been?
It is double digit. The specific numbers I do know, however, I can't discuss that. And I know it sounds like, oh, I'm being coy or whatever, but this show, any other interviews I do, right? Foreign intelligence services are watching, and it's like, I'm not here to help Russia and China calibrate their intelligence collection. Like, oh, Dave said it's this number. We missed a couple. Shit, let's put it out for the KGB, SVR, and GRU are now going to hit the streets to try to figure out which ones they missed. So I'm here to protect national security, and I'm just trying to put all the general topics out there for public conversation to hold our government accountable, really. So, because I'm here as a fact witness, because we have a constitutional oversight issue because this program has not been reported to Congress in the appropriate way, and I can get into a senator I talked to that has died recently, so I can, explain to you why I'm so sure. Besides what I read, which we can get into what intel reports I read, I did get some stuff cleared. So during my investigation, I'm like, you know what? I need to talk to somebody at the highest levels, right? So, and this will give you an idea of the kind of people we talk to. And this is the only one I'm going to talk about using their name because they died 2 years ago. So in spring 2021, I actually flew with a couple colleagues of mine to Las Vegas. And I met with Senator Harry Reid about 9 months before he died. And of course, he's a private citizen now. And I wanted to brief him on the topic, and I wanted to get his kind of thought leadership on it because, he was a Gang of Eight member, right? Which is the top most cleared senators and congressmen. He was the majority leader, for God's sakes, of the Senate. And I knew, he helped sponsor the OSAP program that I mentioned and where they looked at Skinwalker Ranch and some other things. And I wanted to understand, like, what does Harry Reid actually know? Like, why did he give $21 million to DIA and Bigelow Aerospace for this? So I'm sitting there in Harry Reid's living room, right next to him with some other witnesses that were there with me. And he straight up says, he's like, yeah, I knew we had UFO material. I was denied access for decades. I tried to get access, and then he explained some of his efforts during OSAP, and I was like, holy shit, did the former majority leader just say, did he just confirm this to me as well? You know, I was already talking to these amazing high-level people, but I have Harry Reid literally saying, yes, we have material, and, you know, he knew it was non-human.
Did Harry Reid have personal experience with this?
I don't know if he's had any personal stuff in his personal life.
I mean, did he see it? Did
he said,
witness?
In terms of seeing the material himself, he said he was denied access for years, decades was his term. And he actually told me on behalf of me, he was going, so he had like a weekly call with President Joe Biden at the time. And he straight up said to me he was going to talk to President Biden about this issue, literally. And then what he was telling me about OSAP, I was like, holy shit, I have like 20 other people that told me this, dude. So the real history, what fucking OSAP was, because I think there's a lot of people out there that think they were looking at ghosts, Skinwalker Ranch. Yes, they went to the ranch as a secondary and tertiary objective. But the real reason, so like there's a document that came out a couple years ago through FOIA from the Defense Intelligence Agency. There was this special access program request that Harry Reid, you might have seen this, I think like George Knapp and company have reported on this, that he sent to the Deputy Secretary of Defense, William Lynn. And it was asking for one of the most serious SAPs you can ask for, what they call a bigoted, waived special access program. So waived means it's limited congressional reporting. That is a class of special access programs. And bigoted means it's like by name. And it's like, it was like, you could read the FOIA document. It was like, you know, Harry Reid, James Inhofe, Lou Elizondo, etc. And I'm like, why are you asking for the most serious SAP to be created for a program that ostensibly is looking at Skinwalker Ranch and stuff? And it doesn't make any sense. So what really happened there, and you know, Harry Reid, God bless his soul, made this disclosure a couple weeks after we met in the New Yorker, and you can look this up. I think it was like a May 2021 New Yorker story where he says, I knew for decades, and he made this disclosure, not me, so I'm going to say the name of the contractor. Harry Reid said this. You know, we knew that Lockheed Martin had this material for decades. I tried to get access, and I was denied. And specifically with the Lockheed Martin stuff, he was talking about during the OSAP program. And for the people who are on this program, I submitted this shit to the officer, got this cleared, so don't freak out, but I'm telling the truth here. So Lockheed Martin wanted to divest itself from this material at a specific facility that's known to me that I provided to the Inspector General, like street address, all that shit, right? And the idea was if they made a catcher's mitt, a security catcher's mitt for this shit, you know, most serious SAP possible, the contractor and the other government customer, which was the Central Intelligence Agency, for that specific Lockheed material. And it was shit that they recovered from like the 50s and stuff. And it was like bits and pieces of like hull structure, shit like that. And so they were going to tech transfer it. And the $21 or $22 million was actually for Bigelow Aerospace to build out, you know, facilities in Las Vegas and material analysis equipment. And I saw the staff meeting slides. I saw the paperwork. Like there's a paperwork trail I've seen on this shit. And I talked to the people involved in this program.
The ocean is largely undiscovered. One of the things that people need to understand is that most of the exploration of the ocean is really essentially around the outside edges.
That's right.
It's around the shores.
Less than 10%. So,
which is nuts.
A buddy of mine
90% of the ocean.
That's right.
Like what?
We know more about the moon than the bottom of our own ocean. And so
that's so crazy.
Yeah. That's fact.
And these underwater crafts, like this enormous one that apparently was near this oil rig, how many of them have been? Has there been more than one of those videos?
So let me tell you what I can say from open source.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay. And then I'll tell you about a conversation I had without attribution because I don't want to get in trouble. Mm-hmm. Everybody's, well, not everybody. A lot of people are familiar with the Air Force's program called the Fast Walker
program, which is a program that was started by the Air Force, among other things, was to detect UFOs. That's a fact. That was part of their mission, to detect a lot of things, adversarial technology, but UFOs was one of them. It's called the Fast Walker program. There was some information that was released publicly about a similar program the Navy has. I can't talk about it because I don't have approval to talk about it. But obviously they're interested because they have equities underwater. They're interested in if there's anything underwater that can perform beyond anything we have. And I remember speaking to one individual who pulled me aside very privately, and he said, Lou, we were tracking this thing doing, and I won't say the exact speed, but hundreds and hundreds of knots underwater. And it was bigger than our own submarine. Right now, you know how big our submarines are, right? They're huge.
Yeah.
And I asked him naively, I just kind of came out, well, what do you do when you encounter that? And he just said, very honestly, he said, we go around. Just like that, we go around.
Have there been interactions with these things?
I we're not at liberty to discuss any details about that. Right. That's not for me to discuss. You and
I got to get drunk.
I'm a lightweight,
I got to get you drunk. Let's go have some whiskey. Find out what the fuck is up. So this thing is bigger than the sub, and they followed it for hundreds of miles.
Let me give you another a great event that occurred. And I'll talk about this because it's not classified. The portions that might be, I don't know about, so I should be fine. There's an individual who I'm aware of who was a helo pilot, a helicopter pilot back in the late 90s in the Caribbean, and they were doing missile recovery. So what happened is that the Navy would test fire missiles, and then they kind of run out of fuel, they hit the water, and they sink. At a predetermined time, they pop to the surface, we grab it with a helicopter, bring it back to shore, and we test it for telemetry and make sure that this cruise missile was doing what it was supposed to do. So they're out there in the helicopter, frogmen hanging down the line. You got the helo pilot, you got the crew chief, and the co-pilot looking all down at the bubble. And as they're about to grab this cruise missile out of the ocean, something huge and round, and what was described to me as black as a devil, starts to rise to the surface. The water begins to churn, very much like David Fravor's description of the Tic Tac incident and the roiling water. The frogman is so freaked out, he's literally trying to climb the line back up. He's like total Panic at the Disco, right? And the helicopter's like, do we do like an emergency ascent? What the hell's going on here? And right as this thing is about, and by the way, it's the size of a small island and round. Right as this thing is about to break the surface, it sucks the missile down and disappears.
Jesus
and that
Christ.
was, And Dave Fravor could probably tell you that story a little better than I can. But when you compare that to other things, you got to say,
imagine being that guy hanging from that line.
No, no, thank you. We call that bait.
Yeah, but it didn't do anything to him.
No.
I would have loved that experience.
Yeah, so that was one of the anecdotes that was revealed to us by one of the Navy helicopter pilots.
Who's that guy that was hanging from that?
The frogman?
Was he a SEAL?
I don't know. I only know the pilot.
Bro, come talk to me. Please, sir.
I only know the pilot.
We'll put you in a fucking panda outfit. We'll disguise your voice. Tell me what the fuck you saw. I want to hear that story. Oh, my God. A small island.
Yep.
Black as the devil and a small island and round.
Yeah, submarines look like this, right? They're not round.
Right.
So, yeah. So that was one of the anecdotes that was shared with us. Obviously Puerto Rico with the there's been some UAPs that have been recorded off there. Everybody knows about Aguadilla, the Aguadilla incident.
I don't know about it.
Oh, I'm sure you do. You
don't
know
do?
About
Tell me.
Wow.
Trust me.
So you can look it up online. There's a video taken by a DHS helicopter of a very interesting object. At first it appears to be like perhaps a balloon, but then it does all sorts of weird stuff. And as you're tracking it, it enters the water without making a splash. You can track it underwater. Then it comes up and splits into two. And it's been analyzed over and over again by a lot of experts. It's called the Aguadilla incident.
Maybe I have seen this. Is it kind of blurry looking night vision?
There we go. That's it.
Oh, wow.
And so keep watching that, and I'll tell you a little story about this. This is a Customs and Border Protection released this.
How fast is this thing going?
So if you look here, they're looking at this through a form of night vision. I don't know the exact velocity. All that is available. But if you keep watching this, something interesting happens. So here it goes. You're going to see this thing enter the water here. there he goes underwater, and then it pops back up and splits into two. They're tracking it. See, no waves, no wake, and then it surfaces and then does something pretty interesting here. So keep watching.
So it's going high speed through the water.
Underwater. That's underwater. Then it breaks the surface of the water again. Keep watching. Boom, underwater, over water, boom, underwater, out of water, and then you'll see it split into two. So
I didn't see it split into two. Did you see it?
If you watch the rest of the video, there it is.
Oh, there it is.
Yeah, the video is actually really long, but that's just one example. This is these are, you can see all these videos. They're prevalent. They're everywhere. You see the aircraft on the bottom right. You see the UAP on top that's tracking it.
Yeah.
Yeah. No wings, no control surfaces, and it keeps up with the A-10 and does all sorts of interesting maneuvers. Right. So that's an A-10 Warthog.
And this thing's just following it.
Yep, like it's nothing.
Do you think they're trying to let people see them? Like, if you had a guess?
I don't know. I mean, could it be a demonstration of capabilities? We do that, right? Every time a Russian surveillance aircraft comes by, we launch 2 F-22s and we get real close to it and say, hey, be careful.
But not even from a military perspective. Like, if a civilization was trying to alert another civilization about its presence, wouldn't it go towards whatever military vehicles it has and show itself? And then I would imagine that if they understand human beings, they understand our psychology, and they understand that some giant size of an island, black as the devil, circular craft that lands next to the Pentagon would fucking end the world. We would freak out. No one would know what to do. That would be stock market crash, mass chaos. No one would know what to do. The way to introduce yourself, I would imagine, would be gradual over a long period of time, to allow this civilization to accept the fact these things exist, and then slowly but surely show versions of themselves.
Yeah. Hopefully it all comes out and people can legally talk about it at some point. But
can you talk about it without?
I know there's been multiple contact events, like straight up,
events?
contact events. One of them is revealed in the film actually, but there are more. There was this. Several of the people in my film talk about an event that happened at Hallerman Air Force Base where 2 non-human crafts approached the base. One landed. Beings walked out and interacted with Air Force officials and CIA officials. And a couple people go on the record talking about that in the film. But there have been other events, I've been told.
How are those beings described?
They were described as tall, slender, humanoid. And the another thing that I heard that gave me chills was that someone involved with a recovery interacted with a non-human being that was dying and heard thoughts in his head that said, you humans don't know your full potential. And that was said to me by a very senior, older guy from the intelligence community. And I thought that was pretty incredible. Also, just the extent to which the legacy program is real. This isn't like 50 guys, sitting in a quiet, dark room. You're talking about a massive program with thousands of people going to work every day and dealing with this. And to me, that is mind-blowing, Yeah. The guy next to you at the pizza place, on a Saturday night might be working on this during the day,
Right.
The guy who, the other father at your kid's Little League game.
Yeah.
This is what he deals with, right? The fact that is a thing, and we had a similar dynamic for the Manhattan Project. There were all these people working on it, and they kept it secret, right? And their neighbors and friends didn't know. But this is that on steroids. So, after the Manhattan Project, which was had a budget in the billions, this situation arose, and it had to be even more secret than the Manhattan Project, because the Manhattan Project, we found out in hindsight, leaked, right? There were moles.
Right.
So we needed to make this even more secret and give it more money and more resources and more, counter intel.
And more threats.
Which is counter intel,
Yeah, I mean, threats if you reveal those secrets. But it's like the more this stuff gets discussed, the more I go back to what Lazar said. Because what Lazar is describing from the 1980s is exactly what these people are saying now. They've had these things. They've been trying to figure them out. They've been working on them. At least in the 1980s, they hadn't totally cracked it yet. but they did know how to operate them, and that they would do these tests. But everything was so compartmentalized. He said he wasn't allowed to talk to the metallurgist. There was different people that were assigned to it.
Yeah.
What they were assigned to do was to try to figure out how the propulsion system worked.
Yeah.
And then there was other people that were assigned to try to figure out how the metallurgy was formed.
Yeah.
Because whatever it was seemed like it was 3D printed. It didn't have any seams.
Yeah.
And when he talks about it, it sounds exactly like what people are talking about today, which is really bananas.
Yeah.
Because this is late 1980s, and he's the first guy to crack through with this stuff.
Yeah, everything is so in that secret program. Everything is so siloed out where you could have one team of defense contractors working on one thing. They're not even told it's from an alien spacecraft. They're just told, "Here's the thing. It might be Russia. It might be China. Tell us how it works." You
right.
know? They're just kept in a little bubble. And one of the issues now is that everything's become so overclassified and so siloed that it's actually hurting progress. And that's a lot of the scientists in my film are voicing that. And one of the other things I learned recently that isn't in the film, Jay Stratton, who ran the UAP task force, he told me that during that time, he had started a talk with one of the senior scientists at Lockheed, who was frustrated by how overclassified everything was. It even made it hard for the defense contractors to get the right manpower and brains on it, because not everyone can be cleared to do the work, right? There's all these like red tape hurdles to progress, right? And so they had made a plan to move one of the crafts that had been recovered that was in Lockheed's possession into the possession of the UAP task force. And then the task force was going to be able to put more brain power towards it. And then the head of science and technology at the CIA shut it down in the middle of the transfer. They had actually secured a hangar on a military base and prepped it to be a classified hangar that would hold this craft, and they were stopped. So the issue of overclassification.
Did they know what happened after that?
Yeah, the CIA just shut the whole transaction down, and the craft stayed in Lockheed's possession. And then that particular leader within Lockheed died about 2 years later. So the effort kind of stopped. He had cancer. The overclassification is definitely a hurdle for this. And our competitors don't necessarily have that. Like there's no free will in China. She can just be like, "Hey, you're the smartest guy graduating your class. You're going to go work for the nation on this."
Right. Period.
And here, the problem is no one knows it's real. One of the things I hope the film changes is it makes the scientific community know that this is a valid area of inquiry. This is real. It's a real situation, and there's a ton of problems for the next generation of engineers and scientists to solve, And so hopefully it inspires them and helps us make progress, because there's a lot of progress that could be made here.
Well, it certainly seems like it, but it's like one of the things that you guys propose in the film that I think may be the only way forward is some sort of a mass amnesty to all these people that did lie to Congress and probably misappropriated funds and maybe stole a little bit here and there. Like if that doesn't happen, no one is going to push to make this public. No one's going to push for like actual full disclosure, because it leaves them too exposed. And if they do have the kind of power that they must have to be running an organization of thousands of people working on something with unbelievable amounts of money being transferred to these programs, they don't want to let that go.
Yeah.
Like this is like it's a honeypot that they're drawing from, right? And they're probably still taking too much, or there's no oversight. You're still lying to Congress. And you'd have to have some national security amnesty program saying, look, in the interest of national security, it's critically important that we get all of our best people working on this. The only way we're ever going to really do that is to completely reveal that this is actually really happening. This is real crafts from somewhere or something. We have them. We'll tell you where we have them. And I think right now people wouldn't even freak out, because I would think that people would freak out if there was some sort of official narrative of disclosure. But that's sort of been breached, right? The New York Times breached that in 2017.
I think this film is that. I mean, this is 34 credible people putting their reputation and name on the line, which I honestly, Joe, I think it's stronger evidence than any video or photo. These days, you could put a 4K video of a giant craft over Vandenberg, and half the human population will say it's AI or creating some visual effects program. But someone of note, putting their name and reputation on the line, their career on the line, the rest of their lives on the line, to say this is what I know to be true. To me, that's the greatest evidence that exists. But I do think, to your point, amnesty is something that's gonna have to be figured out, because while it's hard for anyone to accept letting people off the hook for wrongdoings, right? It does seem like it's in the best interest of the bigger picture.
100%.
Because these people just aren't good. They have no incentive to come forward with what they've learned. And so, to quote Rubio in the film, he says, look, this is not a endeavor to go and punish anyone, but we need to know what they learned.
Right.
And I think he's totally dead on. And, you know,
is he in favor of some sort of an amnesty program as well?
Yeah, he says on camera in the film, he's like, I'm not trying to punish anyone. I need to know what they learned, because taxpayers paid for this, and it's in our interest to know what's going on. But the other thing that's needed is real whistleblower protection, not the whistleblower protection that's been passed so far. Like much stronger legal protections, so that people like the folks I talked to, the special forces guys I talked to, were going to come forward and then decided they thought to be forfeiting their lives. You've got to change that set of circumstances. You got to make those people feel like that's not going to happen to them.
Right.
And what I think ultimately is going to have to happen, and I wouldn't be surprised, man, if it happens soon after the film comes out, I think a sitting president has to step to the microphone and say, definitively, humanity's not alone in the universe. We have recovered technology of non-human origin. So have other nations. There is a high-stakes secret Cold War race to reverse engineer this technology. We need to win this race, and the U.S. intends to lead in this new chapter. I think that needs to happen, like a level set of basic facts, and I really do think it will happen.
Well, if that is going to happen, I think Trump might be the only guy that's willing to do something crazy.
I think it's very likely that he does that. I know that he is aware of the film. I know he's aware of what people in his administration say.
Has he watched it? You know that?
He has not watched the film, but I know he's very aware of it, and I know that they are discussing internally how they're going to react to the film publicly. And I also know that he has very recently, tasked Tulsi Gabbard with getting to the bottom of the situation and finding out for him what he needs to know that he doesn't know.
Really?
Yeah. And as Rubio said in the film, Rubio says on camera, on the record, on the film, that this has been kept from sitting presidents. And he goes into detail on how that's been done, and how it's the career bureaucrats in certain elements of the government that control this information and just wait presidents out and don't feel like they have a need to know.
Right. Well, there were some people that tried to find information out in the beginning of the Trump administration. Who was it? There was someone that talked about it on record and said he was told at every turn that you don't have the clearance.
Yeah. But here's the thing. Trump actually found out about the base facts in his last presidency and was contemplating stepping to the microphone then.
What base facts?
So Jay Stratton, who ran the task force, he says on camera in my film that he briefed that Mnuchin, the Secretary of Treasury, asked for a briefing on the lay of the land because Trump asked him to get the briefing, and Trump had already known that the base facts that we're not alone in the universe, that there's been recovery of crashed craft, right? He knew those base facts, and he told Mnuchin that he was thinking about going public. And so Mnuchin reached out to Stratton to get a briefing, and he told Stratton that the reason he wanted the briefing is because he needed to be able to evaluate what the impact would be to the economy if the president decided to step to the mic and tell the world we're not alone. And Stratton tells the story on camera in the film, and I've heard a lot more about it off camera. So we know Trump contemplated doing this already. Now I think the release of this film and Rubio's involvement puts enough on the table that it makes it easier for him to do.
I think they would have to have some sort of a plan in place if they were going to say that, right? Like the amnesty plan, the idea behind it would have to be in place. If someone's
or at least grab control of the situation and say that this is real and the U.S. intends to lead the way. Because the other factor that the White House has to keep in mind is you don't want Xi or Putin being the guy to do that.
Right.
You don't want them to have that moment, right?
Right.
You know, something I always think about with regards to that moment of a president stepping to the mic. When we entered the space race, Kennedy gave that big famous speech, right? He was like, "We're going to lead in space technology, like, you know, space technology, like nuclear technology, has no conscious of its own. It's up to man to use it for good or bad, and we're going to make sure it's used for the betterment of all mankind, and we're going to lead the way." That was his whole rallying speech, right? And it made the whole scientific community be like, "We're going to help the U.S. win," like, you know, rah rah rah, right? I think that's needed in this race. Like, we need all the support of the scientific community, of academia, the kids coming out of MIT. We need them putting their brain power towards this, and I think the White House knows that. And it's also the greatest. That's the greatest TV moment a leader could have in the history of humanity. Step into the microphone.
Do you think Elon knows?
Look, I've seen him obviously talk to you about it. I think he knows a lot.
Yeah, me too.
I don't think you get the contracts and the clearances you need to operate in space without some horse trading.
Yeah, when I went to SpaceX, I'm like, motherfucker, you know everything. There's no way you're launching these fucking things into space without them keying you in on exactly what's going on. He's just sly about it.
Well,
He goes, well, if they are aliens, they're certainly all subtle. That's what he says. Like, are they really? I don't know, man.
I think it's impossible to operate in space like he does and not be aware of everything. And also at the level he operates clearance-wise. I held a secret screening at the National Space Symposium earlier this year, which is the Super Bowl of the space industry. It's like 60 people, heavy hitters from the space industry. We didn't promote it or publicize it at all, but there were a dozen guys from SpaceX there, and they all seem very aware of everything revealed in the film.
Yeah, I'm positive.
Yeah,
he's my friend, and he won't tell me.
He's a legend.
He keeps a lid on it.
He's a legend.
But how would he not know if it is? And, you know, some people have told me he knows that he knows some things. So whatever. But the point is, people are good at keeping secrets. That's real.
100%.
Even people that aren't notoriously good at keeping secrets are good at keeping secrets when they have to be.
Do you think if you put yourself, you've interviewed Trump, do you see him doing that? Stepping to the mic and telling us the truth?
Someone talks to him about it and convinces him it's a great idea. Like, if I had an hour with him.
I mean, it's literally the single, in my opinion, the single greatest moment a leader could have.
Well,
in the history of the world.
If he could be the guy that blows the lid off of it, that would definitely help with his legacy too, which I think would be a good way to convince him.